Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachare. Yamunatira Vanachare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachare. Yamunatira Vanachare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachare. Yamunatira Vanachare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paripradikacharya Astotadashati Shri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Good morning. Welcome to Bhagavatam class. Today we'll be reading from the 10th canto, 78th chapter, 16th verse. So, we don't have the board, so please whip out your Celefano and I guess if you're going to sound check, it'd help if I talk. Turn that. That. Can you turn that down? Yeah, I don't need to hear myself that well. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Om Agyana Tamarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Ukam Karoti Vachalam Pangulangayate Girim Yatkrpatamaham Vande Shri Gurundinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Isharam Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishtaya Bhutale Srimate Romapada Swami Ati Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Ati Namine Namaste Sarasate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Evam Yogeshvara Krishna Bhagavan Jagadishvaraha Iyate Pashudrishtinam Nirjito Jayati Tista Evam Yogeshvara Krishna Bhagavan Jagadishvaraha Iyate Pashudrishtinam Nirjito Jayati Tisa Evam Yogeshvara Krishna Bhagavan Jagadishvaraha Iyate Pashudrishtinam Nirjito Jayati Tisa Evam Yogeshvara Krishna Bhagavan Jagadishvaraha Iyate Pashudrishtinam Nirjito Jayati Tisa Evam. In this fashion, yoga of mystic yoga, Ishvaraha, the Lord, Krishnaha, Krishna, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Jagat, of the universe, Ishvaraha, the Lord, Iyate, seems, Pashu, like animals, Drishtinam, to those whose sight, Nirjitaha, defeated, Jayati, is victorious, Iti, as if, Saha, He. Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Thus, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Master of all mystic power and Lord of the universe, is ever victorious. Only those of beastly vision think he sometimes suffers defeat. And purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti gives the following elaborate commentary on this section of Srimad Bhagavatam. Concerning the killing of Dantavakra, the Uttarakhand 279 of the Padma Purana contains further detail in the following prose passage. There's a lot of Sanskrit here, and we're going to skip all of it. Then, hearing that Shishupal had been killed, Dantavakra went to Mathura to fight against Krishna. When Krishna, moreover, heard of this, he mounted his chariot and went to Mathura. Between the two of them, Dantavakra and Lord Vasudeva, there then began a battle at the gate of Mathura that lasted all day and night. Finally, Krishna struck Dantavakra with his club, at which point Dantavakra fell lifeless to the ground, all his limbs smashed like a mountain, shattered by a lightning bolt. Dantavakra achieved the liberation of gaining a form equal to the Lord's, and thus he also achieved the Lord's eternal, supreme abode, attainable by perfect yogis, which bestows the happiness of everlasting spiritual bliss. So, it was that Jai and Vijay, apparently because of being cursed by Sanaka and his brothers, but actually to facilitate the Supreme Lord's pastimes, descended to this material world, and in 3 consecutive lifetimes were killed by the Lord himself. Then, at the completion of these 3 lifetimes, they attained liberation. In this passage of the Padma Purana, the words Krishna stuk tak trutva, when Krishna heard of this, indicate that the Lord heard from Narada, who travels as swiftly as the mind, that Dantavakra had gone to Mathura. Therefore, immediately after killing Shalva, without first entering Dwarka, the Lord reached the vicinity of Mathura in a single moment on his chariot, which also moves as swiftly as the mind, and there he saw Dantavakra. Thus it is that even today, by the gate of Mathura facing the direction of Dwarka, there is a village known in the vernacular as Daita, a name derived from the Sanskrit Dantavakraha, killer of Dantavakra. This village was founded by Krishna's great-grandson, Vajra. In the same section of the Padma Purana, these statements follow. Krishna crossed the Yamuna and went to the cowherd village of Nanda, where he honored and consoled his aggrieved parents. They drenched him with tears and embraced him, and then the Lord offered obeisances to the elder cowherd men and gratified all the residents with abundant gifts of clothing, ornaments, and so on. Lord Keshava sported continuously with the cowherd women on the Kalindi's charming bank, which was filled with pious trees. Thus the Supreme Lord, assuming the appearance of a cowherd, resided there for 2 months, enjoying the pleasure of intimate pastimes in various moods of loving reciprocation. Then, by Lord Vasudeva's grace, Nanda and all the residents of that place, together with their children and wives, assumed their eternal spiritual forms, boarded a celestial airplane, and ascended to the supreme Vaikuntha planet, Goloka Vrindavan. Lord Krishna, however, after bestowing on Nandagopa and all the other inhabitants of Vraja his own transcendental abode, which is free of all disease, traveled through the sky and returned to Dwarka as demigods chanted his praises. Srila Rupa Goswami comments as follows on this passage in the Lagu Bhagavatamrita 1:488 and 89. Since Drona and other demigods had previously descended to earth to merge as partial expansions into the king of Raja and other devotees of Vrindavan, at this time it was these demigods' expansions whom Lord Krishna sent off to Vaikuntha. Lord Hari is perpetually enjoying pastimes in Vrindavan with his intimate devotees and the residents of Gokul, who are dearer to him than even his most dear other devotees. In the passage of the Padma Purana, the word putra in the phrase Nandagopa and the others, together with their children and wives, refers to such sons as Krishna, Sridham, Subal, while the word Dara refers to such wives as Sri Yashoda and Kirtida, the mother of Radharani. The phrase Sarve Janaha, all of the people, refers to everyone living in the district of Raja. Thus, they all went to the topmost Vaikuntha planet, Goloka. The phrase Divya Rupa Dhara indicates that in Goloka they engage in pastimes appropriate to demigods, not those suited to humans, as in Gokul. Just as during Lord Ramachandra's incarnation, the residents of Ayodhya were transported to Vaikuntha in their selfsame bodies, so in this incarnation of Krishna, the residents of Raja attained to Goloka in theirs. Lord Krishna's journey from Dwarka to Vraja is confirmed by the following passage of Srimad Bhagavatam 1:11:9. O lotus-eyed Lord, whenever you go away to Mathura, Vrindavan, or Hastinapur to meet your friends and relatives, every moment of your absence is like a million years. Lord Krishna had been harboring a desire to go see his friends and relatives in Vraja ever since Lord Balaram had gone there, but his mother, father, and other elders in Dwarka had refused to give him permission. Now, however, after the killing of Shalva, when Krishna heard from Narada that Dantavakra had gone to Mathura, no one could object to the Lord's going there immediately without first entering Dwarka. After killing Dantavakra, he would have the opportunity to meet his friends and relatives living in Vraja. Thinking like this, and also remembering Uddhava's allusion to the gopis in the words Gayanti te vishada karma, Bhagavatam 10:71-9, he went to Vraja, dispelling the feelings of separation of the inhabitants. For 2 months Lord Krishna enjoyed in Vrindavan just as before, previous to his leaving there to kill Kamsa in Mathura. Then, at the end of 2 months, he withdrew his Vraja pastimes from mundane eyes by taking the demigod portions of his parents and other relatives and friends to Vaikuntha. Thus, in one complete plenary manifestation, he went to Goloka in the spiritual world. In another, he remained perpetually enjoying in Vraja, while invisible to material eyes, and in yet another, he mounted his chariot and returned alone to Dwarka. The people of Shaurasena province thought that after killing Dantavakra, Krishna had paid a visit to his parents and other dear ones, and now is returning to Dwarka. The people of Vraja, on the other hand, could not understand where he had suddenly disappeared to, and so they were totally astonished. Furthermore, Shukadev considered that Parikshit Maharaj might think, how is it that the same Krishna caused the cowherds to attain Vaikuntha in their self-same bodies, also caused the residents of Dwarka to attain such inauspicious condition in the course of his Maushala Leela. Thus, the king might consider the arrangement unfair of his own affinity for the Yadus. That is why Shukadev Goswami did not allow him to hear this pastime, which, as mentioned above, is related in the Uttarkhand of Sri Padma Purana. And Sri Vaishnava Toshini, Sanatana Goswami's commentary on the 10th canto, we find the following sequential list of pastimes. First was the journey on the occasion of the solar eclipse, then the Rajasuya assembly, then the gambling match and attempted disrobing of Draupadi, then the Pandavas' exile to the forest, then the killing of Shalva and Dantavakra, then Krishna's visit to Vrindavan, and finally the winding up of the Vrindavan pastimes. That was quite the purport. So we hear in the purport that at this time Krishna's got a lot going on. And if we just read the verses, we're not actually hearing all of what Krishna's got going on. This is actually one of Krishna's wonderful qualities, that as the Supreme Lord, he can be in multiple places at the same time doing totally different things. One place this is confirmed is earlier in the 69th chapter of the 10th canto, where we hear about Narada Muni visiting Krishna's palaces to see Krishna and see what he's doing, and he finds that Krishna is doing different things in each different palace. This is a window to what time is like in the spiritual world. So here in the material world, time is a all-pervading force that we can't overcome. It's going to overpower us no matter what. But in the spiritual world, it's said that time is conspicuous by its absence. This doesn't mean that time isn't present. What it means is that time acts according to Krishna's desire. The clock ticks in whatever direction Krishna wants it to. If Krishna desires to perform a particular pastime, then time arranges for that pastime to happen. Krishna doesn't have to wait until it's nighttime to perform a nighttime pastime. And he doesn't have to wait till the next afternoon to perform an afternoon pastime. Nighttime, afternoon, any time of the day happens according to Krishna's will and Krishna's desire to perform a given activity. And when Krishna comes to the material world, time acts in a similar way for him as well. He can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, because he's Krishna. And not only is he performing different activities in different places at the same time, he's doing these different activities in both the material world and the spiritual world at the same time. So we've heard in the purport about Krishna taking his Vraja associates, his friends and family, back to Goloka Dham. But it's mentioned that Krishna goes elsewhere after taking his associates there. It doesn't mean that Krishna went to and then came back from Goloka Dham, but rather he's both there and here and somewhere else simultaneously. And it's not just Krishna as Krishna that is in multiple places, but we can also understand that Krishna as the Supersoul is also in multiple places at the same time. In fact, Krishna as the Supersoul is within the heart of every living being all at the same time. And another way to understand this is that Krishna as the all-pervading Lord Vishnu is within every atom of creation in the material world. Not just, this earth that we see, but all of the planets in the planetary system and all of the innumerable planetary systems that are scattered throughout the material manifestation. And this is one of the qualities, it's particular to Krishna that makes him so wonderful, is that he is the performer of many wonderful pastimes. So in this commentary, we're hearing how Krishna is always performing wonderful pastimes. And we hear about another of Krishna's qualities as well, that he is surrounded by devotees who possess love of God. First and foremost, when we think of devotees who possess love of God, we should think of the residents of Vrindavan, because these residents of Vrindavan aren't ordinary people. They are, of all the devotees of the Lord, and devotees of the Lord are all very special. They are the most special. And because of this fact, they're most special in this part of the Bhagavatam we're hearing. Actually, in this part of the Bhagavatam we're hearing the Padma Purana quoted, how Krishna has personally taken them back to the spiritual world. It's noteworthy from this verse and the commentary of the Acharyas that even though Krishna is the most powerful and is always easily victorious, that he sometimes appears to be defeated. It's stated that people who see Krishna as appearing to be defeated are like animals, or they have animal-like vision. And particularly in this day and age, many people are animal-like, and many people have animal-like vision. Practically, the entire society is acting on the animalistic level, always thinking about eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. When we engross ourselves in these animal level activities, we bar ourselves from actually participating in the real activities of a human. The real activities of a human are to inquire about life. Who am I? Why am I here? Why am I suffering? Without asking these questions, we keep ourselves on the animal level. And, we might be eating, sleeping, mating, and defending on a more complex level than most animals. But we're still acting on the level of animals. But this human form of birth is special because we're given human intelligence. And we're not given human intelligence to increase our eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. We're given the human intelligence to inquire more deeply. Instead of concerning ourselves with the body, what we can make the body do, how we can get enjoyment from the body. It is the purpose of human life to find out why we're in the body, to find out that we're not the body, to find out what comes after we're in this body. But due to the influence of the material nature, people aren't asking these questions anymore. Krishna. So, with the advancement of Maya, it's becoming more and more fashionable to act in more and more of a degraded way. Now it's becoming fashionable to go to sacred places and places of pilgrimage, holy dhams, to perform sinful activities there. There's so this just brought to my attention yesterday, actually. There's a hotel in Vrindavan that specifically caters to people's desire to drink alcohol, dance, have sex, these things. It's a nightclub in Vrindavan. And to me, that's something, it's just so hard to wrap my head around that people are behaving in this way. On one level, we could say, well, at least they're going to Vrindavan. But at least to me, it raises question, okay, you go to Vrindavan with the explicit desire to perform sinful activities. That seems like it might be more detrimental than beneficial. But, broadly speaking, even in the most sacred of places, people are going to act like animals. And these people with animal-like vision and animalistic propensities, we can understand that as long as they're stuck in this animalistic mode, that they're not going to be able to actually understand Krishna in any aspect. They'll just remain trapped in the cycle of birth and death, chasing pleasure, running from pain. And this is Krishna's special mercy to really anyone who wants to be like that. He gives facility. That's why, after leaving a human body, if somebody wants to enjoy in a particular way, they're given an animal body that's oriented towards enjoying in that way. It's also the mercy of Krishna to do this. But it's also the mercy of Krishna that it's actually an unenjoyable experience, that it's not something pleasant. If it was pleasant, we would never want to leave. But this isn't a place where we belong. And Krishna doesn't want us to stay here for very long. And this is, at the very least, by my own mental speculation, this is particularly illustrated by these people that are going to Vrindavan, searching for material enjoyment. They're so close. They're so incredibly close to finding out, the answers to the only questions that matter enough to ask in this life. They're so close to being in the most sacred place in the whole universe. But due to their ignorance, due to their animal vision, due to their blindness, which is willful, they're missing the mark entirely. Vrindavan isn't a place for us to go and get our jollies. Vrindavan's not a place to go and enjoy. Vrindavan's a place to go to get closer to Krishna, to hear his glories, to chant his glories, to remember his wonderful pastimes and activities and associates. Vrindavan is where we go as devotees to perfect our life. But it's quite unfortunate that these pleasure seekers are just reducing themselves to the level of animals and going to somewhere so sacred and performing activities that are so gross. There's a distinction to be made, though, that despite whatever is going on in Vrindavan, no matter how materially gross or literally gross it gets, on one level, that's not actually going on. One has to have, to paraphrase Rupa Goswami, eyes tinged with the salve of love. And when we have these eyes tinged with the salve of love, Vrindavan is a different place. One who is devoid of this level of spiritual purity, this level of cultivated love of God, when they go to Vrindavan, one person will see the open sewers in the street. They'll see the hogs and dogs laying in the trash. They'll see all of the litter and pollution, and they'll see, so many unpleasant things. But somebody who's spiritually advanced, on the other hand, only sees Vrindavan. The veil starts to lift, as they say. Because what's happened is Maya Devi has installed this barrier to keep people ineligible to enter Vrindavan out of the actual Vrindavan. It's a protective film. It's almost like a mirror, or like window tint, So there's this thin veneer there, and we're just seeing a reflection of ourselves. When we're materially contaminated, we project all of these things onto the Dham that keep us out of the Dham. But there are some devotees among us who, when they go to Vrindavan, they don't see the same things that we see. They don't see the pollution. They don't see the people passing water on the side of the street. They don't see the dogs fighting with each other and the hogs eating trash. They don't see the people getting intoxicated and partying. They don't see all of the ugly things that someone like me sees in Vrindavan. They're seeing Radha and Krishna and the cowherd boys and girls and the cowherd elders performing their pastimes there. Because Vrindavan is Vrindavan. Regardless of what age we're in, the difference is our qualification to see. So, in order to get to this level of seeing things properly, in order to overcome the gross vision that is currently afflicting us, to decontaminate our eyes, we have to become purified. We have to overcome our animalistic tendencies. We have to refine ourselves from acting like hogs, dogs, camels, and asses, and begin to behave as humans actually are supposed to behave. By overcoming animalistic tendencies, by realizing that we're not this body, and that we're not meant to gratify our own senses, that we're not meant to enjoy, that we're not meant to be here. We transcend this material world and all the misery that comes with it. The truly wonderful part about that is when we transcend the misery of the material world, we gain transcendental pleasure, which isn't limited like this material pleasure is. It's not temporary. And for someone who has overcome the obstacle of the mind, overcome the obstacle of the self, someone who is in constant contact with and in constant remembrance of Krishna, wherever they go is the spiritual world. They're not subject to the threefold miseries, and they're always thinking of Krishna. And because they're always thinking of Krishna, they are always in bliss. Practically, they are always in Vrindavan. This is the aim. This is the goal of this whole thing that we're doing here. Sometimes I feel like we hear more about the rules and regulations, the restrictions and strictures, and we're hearing less about the why. Why are we doing these things? Why are we not doing these things? I think we have to remind ourselves occasionally that we're not the International Society for Rules and Regulations. While it is important to follow certain rules, and while it is important that we maintain certain regulative principles, because those things will aid us in our desire to transcend the mundane, we also have to keep in sight the goal. I know very few, if any, people who will take up a difficult task without knowing what the benefit is or what the end point is. You know, if I told just about anyone I know, okay, start running and don't stop until I tell you to, they're going to go, what are you talking about? Why? Why would I just start running? How long am I going to run? No, just start running. Trust me, just start running. It's kind of a ridiculous task. But if I say, if you run a mile a day, you're going to become very healthy, then, it might be a little more feasible to do. If we understand, within parameters that are attainable, because I certainly can't run a mile a day for, more than, well, geez, I don't know if I could even run a mile in a day if I had to at this point. If we try to engage in doing a difficult task without knowing the outcome and without being attached to the outcome, then we're just not going to do it. The Olympics are going on right now. And all of these people have decided to perform so much austerity to do what they're able to do. But they're not doing this austerity just for the sake of doing the austerity. That's not a normal thing, especially in this age. They understand, okay, that, if I do this, if I practice this very intensely, then I can become very expert. And if I become very expert, then I can go and compete and potentially, be the best person in the world at this particular thing. And they're not just doing it, to be the best. They're doing it because they love what they do. So when we're trying to perform bhakti, we should know what it is we're trying to do, why we're trying to do it, what the end goal is, and probably most importantly, we should be doing it because we love doing it. And if we're not loving the process of bhakti, then there's something wrong. It's true that it's said that the bhakti process is like taking sugar for jaundice, and it's bitter at the beginning and sweet at the end. But if it's only bitter, and we've been doing it for a while, then there's a problem. That's indicative of a larger problem. And it's also difficult because sometimes most of the time, if not all the time, the material world is sweet at the beginning and bitter like poison at the end. And it's a lot easier to do something that is, it's a lot easier to start doing something that's easy to do at the beginning versus something that's hard to do in the beginning. It's a lot easier to quit smoking or to start smoking cigarettes than it is to quit smoking cigarettes. Because when you start smoking cigarettes, there's a really nice feeling that comes along with it. And especially in the beginning, there's little downside. But when you try to quit smoking cigarettes, it's very difficult. It's very unpleasant and uncomfortable. And, who wants to do unpleasant and uncomfortable things? Nobody. We all want to enjoy. That's why we're here in the material world. So we have to make sure we're framing things in the right way. Otherwise, we're not going to want to do them. Of the 4 regulative principles, most of the new people I meet take issue on one level or another with at least one of them. Usually in the very beginning. All of them, to be frank. But as I was encouraged when I started, I always try to encourage others that we shouldn't focus on the strictures. We shouldn't focus on the things that we find unpleasant. We should focus on the aspects of bhakti that we find pleasant. And by doing those things, and by cultivating love, and by enjoying doing those things, then the things that we're not supposed to do will naturally start to fall away. They'll start to fade. They'll start to taper off. And they won't be this big hill to climb anymore. This happens, however, only in an environment where they aren't being actively discouraged by people for not doing all of the things the right way all of the time. I doubt anyone among us, when they were a totally new bhakta, accepted every rule and regulation with enthusiasm and zeal, followed it perfectly right from day one. I doubt any of us were right out of the gate the first day we got a Prabhupada book and a japa mala, started chanting 16 rounds. I'm willing to bet that all of us required even a little bit of encouragement. So if we require encouragement, why are we not encouraging the people that are newer than us? And it's almost seems like sometimes by not encouraging people, that's the neutral position. And the other side of the coin is actually discouragement, which raises the question, why in the hell are we discouraging people from practicing bhakti? But it also sends up a red flag that remaining neutral isn't, it's not really a neutrality here. If we're not encouraging people to practice, we're not neutral, we're actually acting malignantly. If we're not perfect, who are we to cast judgment? As the Bible says, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. So, I don't know too many pure devotees. And of the people I know that are pure devotees, or at least I understand them to be pure devotees, they're not going around discouraging people. They're going around and encouraging people, Even the people that have all bad habits and are performing all sinful activities, they're still encouraging them to perform bhakti in one way or another. But there's, people who are discouraging people who, might not possess but a couple of bad qualities. And they're honing in on the negative instead of the positive. That's not a very attractive thing. In this process, we're supposed to be acting in a way that Krishna wants to see us. That's what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said. Prabhupada also was teaching, first deserve, then desire. We don't deserve if we're being unattractive. Krishna is not going to be attracted to us if we're acting in a repulsive way. And it's just so repulsive to always be discouraging people and chastising people, criticizing people. It's not that everything is sunshine and roses, and we do have to tell the truth at some point, regardless of how comfortable or pretty it is. But usually that's a job that's reserved for guru. And not so many people are guru in this society. When we have actually overcome our animalistic tendencies, we are acting from a place of true humility. And then we have the ability to actually see Krishna as he is. And when we have overcome our animalistic tendencies and we have this position of true humility, that's when we're actually beginning to chant Hare Krishna properly. That's what is said in the third verse of Shikshastakam, that we have to have humility to chant properly. When we actually possess this humility, we don't try to lord it over people. We don't try to dominate people with rules and regulations, but we encourage people in a positive way. We can't be humble fault finders. Those two things are incongruous and incompatible. And it's asinine to say that nobody possesses good qualities, or that, any one particular person possesses no good qualities. Everybody has some good quality. We're not all bad. So, I could go on talking about this for some time, but for the sake of time, I'm going to end here, and I hope that you consider this as encouragement to encourage someone else today, not to tolerate discouragement, but to try to be a positive force in society. That is, after all, what we're trying to do, isn't it? Create a revolution in impious lives. I think that means that we have to act with some piety, and positivity seems pretty pious to me. So with that, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.